Welcome to another episode of the Talking Shop podcast. I am one of your hosts from Grand Slam Cards. My name is Josh. I'm here with Michael, who's at Medium Rare Cards over on Instagram. We got It's Cobb in the background helping us do a little production. And we're ready to talk shop with you all. Michael, how goes it? How was your weekend?
It went well. Non-eventful. Not a lot of card stuff. But it was good. Got some stuff done around the house so that I can go to some card stuff in the future. But before I get into my weekend and the weekend that was, let me do a quick rundown. So the next segment that we're going to do when we talk about our weekend is called the opening rip for you guys who have not been with us before. Then we're going to cover what's hitting the shelves at Grand Slam this week. And then we're going to talk about, we're going to jump behind the counter and talk about Panini and them losing another license. It just the beats just keep on happening to good old Panini. We've got one fantastic listener question segment. Hang in there for that. Cards from the vault or hits from the shop. And then we wrap things up as usual with crazy stat of the week. But first, the opening rip. Josh, how are things at the shop this weekend? I'm hoping every time that I ask that, you're going to say, things were busy.
So, they were busy. This was a busy weekend at the shop. I have to thank the boys for holding it down. I was not here for the first time in a while on Saturday. We went to Damascus, Virginia as a family. Ever been there? You ever heard of the Creeper Trail?
The what trail?
Creeper Trail. It's a bike trail where they shuttle you up to the top of the mountain and you bike the bike trail down 17 miles. And it's so easy to do because our little kids went with us and rode their own bikes. It's virtually mostly all downhill. So we went with a group from our church, kind of off the clock. We went and met up there, spent 2 nights in the little town of Damascus, Virginia, which is a cool little town up in the mountains. And we got to ride bikes for 17 miles. It was very, very cool. Figuratively and literally, because it was pretty chilly. But we were eating lunch. You'll get a kick out of this story. We were eating lunch, and a black hornet or wasp flew onto our food. And so I kind of shooed it away, and that was the end of it, or so I thought. But I said, man, my ankle hurts. I stood up, and I was like, man, what is stinging on my ankle? And it was like my ankle was on fire. I pulled my pant leg up. I'm like, there's a sting on the back of I said, that little bugger went below the table and stung me. Then I put my pants back down and I said, oh man, what is going on? This hurts. Lifted up again. There was another spot. I said, he got me twice. After about 3 times, I finally shook my pants out. That hornet was in my pants and had stung me or bit me or whatever they do like 4 or 5 times on my leg. Then fast forward a day and a half, we're done with the Creeper Trail. Everything's good. We had a good time. We're on our way home. We stop in Blowing Rock. We all played at the park there and ate some lunch. My youngest got stung on his neck by a yellow jacket. And then a few minutes later, I'm like, how you doing? He's like, Dad, my neck still hurts. He's got another sting. I'm like, take your sweatshirt off really quick. We rip his sweatshirt off. That yellow jacket was in his sweatshirt, and it stung him like 3 or 4 times on the neck. Like, so that was as eventful as our Creeper Trail ride got.
Any more eventful, and then you would have been in the hospital. That sounds awful.
Yeah, but 5 or 10 minutes later, it starts to wear off, and it's not too bad. But I would highly, if you're in this area, it's like 2.5 or 3 hours from Rock Hill. You can ride up there. They shuttle you to the top. There's a bunch of bike businesses there. They shuttle you to the top, and you creeper trail it down. There's stops along the way where you can stop and get ice cream or stop and get food. Highly suggest it. Really cool.
Yeah, there's a marketing issue there, calling it the Creeper Trail, but it's probably too old to that's probably baked in. They can't do anything about it. But the Creeper Trail. Well, while you were warding off insects off of yourself and your children, the Broncos were getting the brakes beaten off of them. It's been a while since I've seen that sort of a score in a professional football game. You see it all the time in college football when you get one of a big school just beating up a little bitty school. But wow, thoughts on Tua
to Tyreek is unbelievable. Yeah. Like that combination, I'm starting to think if Tua stays healthy, this dude is unreal. And I don't know if it's McDaniel and his play call is just his play calling's perfect. You know, a little bit of what Andy Reid does with Mahomes, but man, it was like you said earlier, Madden football, just Tua to these guys. The no-look shovel pass, the right-handed no-look shovel pass was one of the coolest passes I've seen this year. The Dolphins are going to be really tough. They're doing this every week. They're just making it look easy. And
yeah, I didn't watch it. I get in trouble. Yeah, I get in trouble by just watching the highlights. Did you watch the game? Like, was there a point where the Broncos were even in it, or was it one of those to where they just got jumped on quick and sort of said,
"Yeah, I watched it.
It's over. We're not going to risk it."
I watched the YouTube like really detailed highlights where they show like every major play. They just skip out all of the BS. Yeah. But it was like the Dolphins jumped up 14-0, and then Russell Wilson looked good, let him down, scored a touchdown, 14-7. Then there'd be a turnover. They'd score another time or two. But when the Broncos get the ball, they'd march down, score a touchdown. But it was like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. They weren't gaining any ground. And then it was fumble, and the Dolphins would take it all the way back. And it was just then at the second half, there was nothing they could do right. I will say Russell's going to take a lot of the heat on this, but there were guys fumbling the ball. Russell didn't look as bad as the score made it look. Yeah. There was a lot more issues with this game than Russell Wilson. So the verdict's still out on him. I know a lot of people aren't sold, and it's not looking good for him, but he was not the main issue in that game. Unlike Zach Wilson, I watched that game too because it's the Patriots. I was starting to feel bad. The Jets with a capable quarterback would have won that game. And you probably didn't see the very last play. They got to within a Hail Mary, and it tipped off the guy's fingers. So they got beat in every aspect of this game, and they were fingertips away from catching that ball and beating the Patriots on the last play of the game. So if they're not looking for a quarterback, I don't know what's wrong, because Nick Foles or Carson Wentz or any of those guys would have probably won that game pretty easily because that defense is really good.
Hey, before we move off of the Broncos-Dolphins game, Jacob, can you pull up that picture that we shared in the pregame? Is this true?
This is true. I looked it up. Said Michael. The meme I saw was this picture. This is Michael McDaniel, who's the Dolphins head coach. Used to be the Broncos ball boy. I said, man, if you could go back in time and say this ball boy right here is going to score 70 points on your team, you'd have thought we were crazy. But they also, did you see at the end, they could have kicked the field goal for the all-time lead in points in a game. The highest point total ever, 72. They were down by the goal line. I mean, they were within the red zone with time enough to kick a field goal to score 73 and have the record. But McDaniel did the classy move and knelt it down.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts? I would have kicked it, and here's why. And here's how I would have defended myself in the press conference. Because, yeah, it's a jerk move. I get it. But I would have said, my guys played their hearts out today, and they deserve to be in the record books, I thought. And I would have kicked it.
I think it's maybe a testament to McDaniel's respect for Peyton.
Probably.
So it probably goes to that. Sometimes, and I'm sure, and I don't know this much about football history. I'm sure there have been other opportunities for other teams to score and beat that record, maybe. And they went into the victory formation and took the knee. But, having that record and possibly souring a relationship with what could be a Hall of Fame coach probably wouldn't have been worth it. So
yeah, and I see that side of it, which is why I think he was very classy to do that. I just think you could argue that, look, if we had got the kickoff and there was a minute left, could we run our 2-minute offense really quick and try to get down there and kick it? But they were like down there. And it was just like, even the crowd, everybody wanted that record. So I would have said, look, we did it for our fans. We did it for the guys out there so they could be a part of the record books. It's no disrespect to the great things Sean Payton and the Broncos have done. It was just, we just felt we wanted to do that there. I don't know. You're going to look like a jerk regardless, but the most points ever scored in a game, that's like one of those staple records.
Well, yeah.
Sweet. It's not like the most points scored in September after the Pro Bowl. It's not one of these weird, obscure stats. It's like the most points ever in a game. I'm going for that one, but I'm a jerk.
I think it'd be cool. I think it'd be cool. Like in baseball, they bring in like a position player to pitch. It'd be fantastic if like a lineman got to play quarterback for a couple plays just to burn some clock. It'd be fantastic. Well, Josh, it's been a crazy release calendar for the last few months. I feel like we've had a baseball product coming out every single week. Football starting to come up. Basketball is going to be here before we know it. But it's a little bit quiet in the shop, but that doesn't mean some great product isn't hitting the shelves. What's new in the shop this week, Josh?
Yep. So it is a light release week. Since our last podcast, Pokemon 151 released. One of the reasons we had a really busy weekend was we sold the daylights out of that. We do still have a little bit left, so if you're after some, come get it today or tomorrow. If you follow me on the store on Facebook or Instagram, I posted today a big batch of 2023 Bowman Chrome has arrived. So we're fully stocked up with Bowman Chrome. So come and get that. It's not new, but it's new-ish, and we had sold out once or twice, so we've got it back in stock. Leaf Exotic Football, always a fun product. I got a bunch of that in stock. That also launched since our last podcast. The only thing new coming this week that's of note is Contenders Optic Basketball, which is always a juicy little product. That arrives Friday, right? That comes out the 29th. Yeah, so that's a Friday release. So outside of some fill-in stuff, just to keep the shelves full and to keep everybody with some choices when they come in. And Allen and Ginter came out Friday, and we sold a lot of that over the weekend. Still got a good bit. But yeah, the only new thing of note this week is Contenders Optic Basketball.
So we're not going to take a deep dive on Contenders Optic. But that's like a high-end product. There's not a lot of cards in that box. Can you just break down that product just a little bit? I know that you've broken it before. I haven't had a chance to break it. So tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about that product.
Yep, it is a high-end basketball product. So it's the chromed out version of regular Contenders. you get 6 cards in a hobby box, and one of those cards is autographed. So I think the breakdown is typically 6 cards, 1 autograph, 1 numbered card. Usually you get a numbered card or 2 out of those 6, 2 base cards, and then probably an insert of some kind. So cards look really good. Like I said, it's kind of the chromed out, thicker version of regular contenders. The autographs, I think, are all on card as well. Don't to that. I should probably know that. But.
And it's high end, but it's not like flawless national treasures. But no, it's in that it's like high risk, high reward. Yeah.
Yeah. I can tell you really quickly. Box break, 1 autograph, 2 inserts or parallels, 2 parallels, and 1 base season ticket. So a base season ticket, 2 parallels. The next 2 cards are either inserts or parallels, and 1 autograph. There's hobby exclusive Black Pandora parallels, which are exclusive to hobby and randomly inserted. But yeah, they're on card autos. Yep, it's one of those. I mean, I think it's usually between $300 and $500. So it's for those with big cojones, because you're only getting 6
high
cards.
Risk. As I said, high risk, high reward.
Yes, perfect way to describe it.
You don't want a lot of base, and you just want to get to it, sort of like the Bowman Chrome HTA, where there's just 3 autographs. This is your product. Now it's time for us to jump behind the counter. Josh, I'm sure you saw this, and we're probably going to bring in Jacob for his commentary on this because he's a wrestling card guy. But Panini gets dumped by another entity. Let's just say that. So they've lost basketball, or they lost football. Now the next domino to fall is WWE. Before we move on to our speculations on which one's going to fall next, what are your thoughts about this? And
I was surprised. It was kind of like we always thought, well, they're going to lose football and maybe basketball, but they're going to go strong with WWE and UFC and some of these others that they've got. I'm curious when Jacob pops in, and Jacob, you don't have to you could just chime in with audio, but this is a question for Jacob. Do you know, does that mean UFC goes as well? Because aren't they merged? Or is that
as far as their rights go, they're merged. I mean, they can still operate on different TV networks and everything like that. And as far as merchandising, I don't think UFC has to jump too. But it came out, I think, a month or 2 after they signed with Panini that they were switching back to Topps in 4 years anyway. So we knew it was happening. We just didn't know it was going to happen 2 years early.
Yeah, so very similar to the football part. I know Panini's filed an injunction, and as of right now, they're still selling their products. I'm sure they're going to do whatever they can to prolong this and fight it. They've countersued, right? Or they've sued. It's the whole thing's a mess. Like I said, I'm just going to sit back and see where the chips fall. You know, stores like us will be fine regardless of who's making the cards, as long as they're made and as long as we can get them. It'll be on the shelf, and there'll always be a desire regardless of who's behind the scenes printing it. But no one's going to be heartbroken about Panini going away. That's the thing, you know. Nobody wants to see.
I don't know. We may have to pull Jacob back in here. I don't know. I don't think wrestling collectors were as disenchanted by the Panini products as sports guys were. Like the shine, no pun intended, of Prism, that went away for me a while ago. Like, I was more of a select guy anyway, even with them doing the whole watering down of the product by bringing it to retail. But I don't know, Jacob, what's your thoughts? Do you have a problem? Did you ever have a problem with Panini WWE products?
Just the price point. But I mean, I don't have to deal with the problems that other sports have to. But I don't want to speak for everybody because I actually did this on a podcast sometime earlier in the year, I think around February. And a lot of WWE collectors or super collectors prefer tops. People are still hung up on like transcendent sets from a few years ago. So like they'll collect the Prism and Select and Impeccable, Immaculate, but they kind of still lean towards tops.
Wait a second. Are you cheating on another podcast on us with
That's
another?
what I heard too. I heard that.
Too. I'm gonna pull Vince McMahon and you're fired. Just kidding.
Get out of here.
There you go. That answers your question. Maybe it won't be a big deal.
So, whether it's a big deal or not, if you had the mortgage to bet, who goes next? Like, one is a thing, two is something to be worried about, three is a trend, right?
Yeah, I think it's.
What's the next one? Is it basketball?
What's left after that?
The only one of significance that I could think of, and this would hurt, is soccer. That would kill them.
Maybe they're pushing all their chips on soccer. I mean, I would think basketball's next, right? I mean, you'd have to think.
Yeah. Yeah, and if Panini basketball goes away, how coveted is that 2012 Prism set now? Even more so.
Potentially, yeah. Prism's no longer made.
So early select.
You know what I would do? I would make Topps Prism, and I would spell it PRISM.
Well, that's how they spell the Prism refractor. They spell it with an S.
But that's because it's an actual adjective. It's not the name.
It's not a brand.
Right. It's the adjective. It's describing it's a Prism card. Prism is like
I think basketball is going to go. You know what? I've never seen one brand do this to another brand. Like systematically, this is going to sound awful. This is like the kid that has the bug and he's just pulling legs off of the thing, just one at a time.
To me,
just slow, methodical, like sort of crazy.
You can't
That's
stop
what this
me.
reminds me of.
You can't stop me. It reminds me of, the entity that the more that it grows, just the stronger it gets, and you just can't slow it down because it just like that game Worm IO, where the worm you go around and the more you eat up and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and you're an unstoppable worm. Fanatics feels like that. They just keep on gobbling up everything in its path and makes them bigger and stronger. And hey,
even though Jacob was cheating on us with another podcast, he makes a great point in the chat. He says one monopoly to another. Meanwhile, Upper Deck still can't or can release product. They can't get it out on time, right? Is that what you're talking about? So I don't know, man. Certainly basketball is probably next, and they'll do the countersuit. But
delaying the inevitable, unfortunately, I think, or maybe fortunately.
Well, what are your thoughts on the whole talk about that this boosts Mosaic, because Mosaic may be the last chromium Panini product that we see for football?
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, if it ends up being that way, it might. I mean, most of it'll be opened probably, but before that's decided. But yeah, I mean, it could. I'm more curious about, will this mean like this year's Prism draft football, if there's no regular Prism, holds a little more value? Some of those things have me curious. I'm just curious where it all will shake out. And nobody knows. Even the really big YouTubers and guys that have lots of inside connections, they don't know either. So it's all speculation at this point, but it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. It's going to be a very interesting next year.
I'm still hoping that they just get a deal done and we see top scrum football in time for the playoffs. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, and get it out to enough people. I know there's a new guy at Fanatics that's in charge of hobby shop relationships. And so hopefully he does a good job and works hard to take care of hobby shops.
Yeah. Normally, we take questions from our listeners or questions that I found in some of the forums that I belong to. But this, I couldn't pass this up. So Jacob.
Did I read this first or did you read this first?
I saw it and was balled up in a fetal position in the corner, just trying to soothe myself.
We should, for context, Michael did an Allen and Ginter preview box break the day before this product released for the shop. And so Michael opened up a box of Allen and Ginter to kind of show our subscribers and our viewers what the product looks like ahead of time. And then every now and again, some people will comment on our YouTube videos. And so for this segment of listener questions, we're gonna do the read mean tweets version, and Michael's gonna read a viewer's question or comment on his YouTube box opening video. Michael, let's hear it, and here it is. This comment was made by Brandon Rhodes 8028.
Yes. So I'm going to try to read it off of my screen because that is too small for me to see. It says,
wait, you have to read it with all the punctuation errors, or you know what I mean? That's how the celebrities do it when they read mean tweets.
Mark McGuire.
No, you got to read the top one first for context.
Okay. So hold on. But
his first comment was
his first comment.
Yeah.
Oh, the Spencer Strider, the Strider Mini, is a short print, an SP. You also passed up a high number base SPs too. I believe the Jackie Robinson full size base is an SP.
See, you're not reading it with the errors. He put
I know.
Robinson full size base is a SP.
Is a SP. Mark McGuire with a U and not a. It's supposed to have a W in there. Was a SP as well. I think reading through the checklist before you opened up your box would have been more informative to you and us. It's like watching someone that's never done a box break or release video before.
Here's what stings the most, probably. That comment has a like. Although I tried to swoop in and be that friend, and I replied to Brandon Rhodes 8028, and I put, "You seem pleasant to be around." And then I followed that up with, "You also spelled McGuire wrong," because he spelled Mark McGuire's last name wrong. So Brandon Rhodes seems like a real D-bag. No offense, Brandon Rhodes. Well, actually, of course it's offense. But.
Regardless, thank you for the feedback, Mr. Brandon. We love it. I will do my due diligence and only make 300 mistakes in my next video instead of 350.
I wonder who liked his comment. Jacob, was that you?
I think so. Cheater. Podcast cheater.
I remember when I did a box break of a product at the very beginning of the season. And yes, I don't know college players very well, but I know pro players. And the card that I had pulled in the break was out of Legacy, I think. So one of the first products that comes out, they're all in their college uniforms. And I didn't know who this player was drafted by, which pro team. And so, of course, like 7 months later, a guy comments on the video, and these players have been drafted. They've been playing. They've been in newer products. They have an NFL career started. Everybody knows what team that player is on now. And of course, he's like, this dude doesn't even know who this guy plays for. So I know a little bit of the feeling like, hey, I've done hundreds, if not thousands of box breaks. Okay, I didn't know who that college player got drafted by. But the only reason he knew probably was because it was 8 months later and everybody knew who he'd gone to. So I know your pain a little bit.
Nothing will be more embarrassing. I was in college. Here's story time by Michael. I was in college, and for some reason I was in this class and we were reading, and I was like volunteered to read this passage. And in this passage was the word F-A-C-A-D-E.
Facade.
Yes. I said, what's a facade? I said, facade. I was in college, said this out loud in my class. I said, facade, facade. Yeah. After that, nowhere to go but up. So
there's an episode of, it's a show called Till Death. It's pretty hilarious. If you like King of Queens, you'd like this. It has the same producers, I think, and same feel. And the wife at the restaurant orders a bunch of fries, and she says, bring me a ton of them. I don't care. Wheel them out in a wheelbarrow. And the waitress says, and laughs, I think you mean wheelbarrow. She's like, no, I said wheelbarrow. And like everyone is just cringing because they had to correct her. And so the rest of the whole episode's about wheelbarrow.
Yeah. Yes.
Here's one.
Go ahead.
Sherbet ice cream. You know sherbet ice cream. It's not sherbet. It's sherbet. There is no second R in it. And I was like 40 before I realized this. And I'd look at the package and I'm like, sure enough, it says sherbet. We've called it sherbet ever since I was a kid. So comment if you've ever called it sherbet or if you knew it was sherbet.
And continue with the mean, not so mean comments on our videos. We love them.
Yeah.
And if we find one, we'd love reading them on air. Bring it.
We just that's our subtle way of saying we need more comments, even if they're negative comments. Oh, no, don't do that.
And now, which this is probably my favorite, unfavorite, most anticipated part of the podcast. Card from the vault. I don't have one this week. Josh, I'm sure you have one.
I don't, but I do have a picture of a couple Allen and Ginter hits that customers pulled. And I'm only showing these two because one, I'm hoping to get in my hand so that we can rip it on the next podcast. But a customer pulled the Ken Griffey Jr. rip card, texted me a picture of it. I said, let me buy it from you so I can rip it on the podcast. So he's going to let me know. So stay tuned. We might rip this on next week's podcast. But just before we went live, a customer bought a box of Allen and Ginter and opened it, brought this card back in. This card was like this thick. But I don't know what this is, and maybe you can help me because I'm not a musician. So this was the card. It's numbered to 140. It's called Music to Your Ears. It's a Koto, Koto. It's numbered to 150. It's a relic piece of an actual piece of a koto, which I'm guessing is this instrument right here. If you know anything about a koto, comment because we'll read it. But this card was monstrously thick, numbered to 140. A genuine koto is what it's called. Have you ever heard of a koto?
I've not, but that right there is exactly why Allen is fun to open. Yes. You're not going to get these wow hits, the sparkly stuff, the fireworks, but every once in a while you'll get something like that. That is like, I've never seen that before.
And there's collectors out there for it.
Absolutely fantastic. All right, Josh, take us out of here with crazy stat of the week?
So I've got two. It doesn't involve Tony Gwynn, believe it or not, but it does involve someone that's on this segment almost as much, Nolan Ryan. So I thought this was pretty crazy. Nolan Ryan had 198 career non-win quality starts. So a start in which it was qualified as a quality start, meaning he did his job, and he didn't win. 198 of those. It says he was 0-107 with a 2.27 ERA. And I think the stat that I had heard, if out of those 198, if just 75 of those would have been wins, I think it puts him like third all time. Like, how that dude never threw a Cy Young is crazy to me, or never got awarded the Cy Young award. And then in honor of the way Ronald Acuna has been playing, I've got a really pretty cool stat here. So Ronald Acuna Jr. this season and Ty Cobb in 1911 are the only players in MLB history to have 75 plus extra base hits and 60 plus stolen bases in the same season. The craziest part about this is they share the same birthday, 111 years apart. So Ty Cobb was born in 1886 on December 18th, and Acuna was born December 18th, 1997. 75 plus extra base hits and 60 stolen bases in the same season, the only two ever to do it. And I think Acuna is like, a couple stolen bases away from 40-70, which has never been done. Have yourself a season, Ronald Acuna.
Well, thank you, Josh. Keep a lookout, folks, for a date for our next card night that's coming soon. Make sure you follow us on our socials. If you've made it this far, thank you. Like, subscribe, comment, give us a review. Josh, any closing thoughts before we let our folks go?
Nope. Stay tuned for that. Come to the shop, get you some Bowman Chrome, and we'll see you next week.
See you guys. Bye.
Peace.